Hey, good morning. How are we doing today?
Now that I unmuted my mic, I'm doing great. As everybody could see now, as I mentioned last week, I am coming to you from an undisclosed location. Although it's disclosed now, you could probably figure it out. I'm in my dining room. My daughter is home, and when she's home, we turn my office back to a bedroom for her. So still stay in a small house. Our kids are getting ready to leave, fully. So we didn't want to change anything around. Hey, I see we got the roar from Mark.
Good morning, everybody. So, good morning, Aaron. Uh, good morning, Belinda. We see Jack here too. Yeah, wow. Simon's here.
Oh,
Mark.
nice.
Oh, we got the whole crew is here. Ben. I even think we see it's. I think it's not about the cell, but it might be the. Is that what language is that? Is that Japanese or? I don't know. Good morning, everybody. How are we doing today? I hope we're doing great. We have some. Today's going to be, and like yesterday, Kevin, what did we have to talk about today?
Uh, Yesterday, I messaged Chris in a panic around, I don't know, 2 or 3 in the afternoon. Said, I got nothing. I've been busy all week with other stuff. Said, I have nothing. I'm going to look at social media, see if I could find a few links. I noticed that Miss Belinda mentioned, thanks to Alex for posting some things, and I found his links, and we thought about talking about that. But in what seems to be almost normal fashion for us these days, you and I get together a little bit before this and came up with another topic. And Chris, I think you're going to do the main lead on a lot of this. What do you think we should talk about today?
You're spot on. We went from like we had nothing to like I don't know how we're going to finish this all in an hour. So uh, there's just so much going on inside the fabric space that's so readily accessible that you could like look at it and go, oh my gosh, what do I have to do to use that or access that? And you realize like, oh, I just have it. It just works, right? Like
Hmm.
it's now it's kind of awesome. So we're going to be diving into this stuff. We're going to get into details on that. A few ground rules before we do. As always, we're inheriting from our friends at the Guy and Cube and Matthew Roche Rules. Please prefix all questions with a Q to get them queued up. Um, and please don't spam the channel. Don't repeat stuff. Moderators, if you see that ever start to happen, go ahead, block that, stop that. We don't want that to go on here. But with that said, um, I think we're just going to dive right into it. So let me get my desktop up. All right. So this is the fabric blog that is out there. This just came out like I think it was earlier this week. I saw it get posted. Um, uh, there's a ton of stuff out here that goes along with this. So I just thought we wanted to quick run through. Oh, let me get this into the chat everywhere in case hey Alex wasn't working. Um, but there are a couple things in here I just kind of want to call out here, right? So number one, Kevin, have you read through all of the things inside of here so far?
Boy, that word "all" is what gets to me. Have I read the table of contents? Yes. Have I read a couple other things here and there? Probably not in detail, but yeah, like you said, there's so much stuff that is posted in there. It's amazing and surprising how much they're able to push out. And this is, kind of during the summer months where I think a lot of people are still taking off or whatever, or they're catching up. So, there's a ton of things out there.
Yeah, and I do want to call out a few of these things because it th- this stuff just works and it's accessible, and because there's so much, go in and use the aspects of fabric that you're using today. Okay, so like
Hmm.
a lot of you are not yet fully on with the fabric side of the house, right? You don't have production workloads in fabric. In fact, you really shouldn't have it production workloads on fabric right now. I mean, it's in preview, right? Things can go up and go down. If you do great, but you're kind of venturing forth at your own risk,
Look at
just
a little.
understand what that means, right?
Yeah.
So you can kind of take and consume from this what's relevant for you, what's the most important aspects for you. So you know,
Yeah, and when you say that, right, it's important to recognize that Power BI is still a major component in Fabric, right? So when we're
mhm,
saying Fabric, we're not excluding Power BI at all, right? And I think that that's a big thing is still make sure you're using the things you have used before, right? And Power BI is not going anywhere. So I know I've seen that kind of in some conversations here and there. People are like, well, what does this mean for Power BI?
yep,
Just
yep,
means things are going to get improved still, right, and better for you even on the Power BI side. It's all one family.
yep. And I guess we got the answer for what Japanese is. It's Japanese for yo. That's funny.
That's
Um,
funny. maybe,
but
maybe he was just practicing it for he'll put that on the Saturday live stream with guy in a cube.
he's got a hotkey. Elgato Stream Decks for the win. um, but that's also right, and it's also true that Power BI components are still in production, right? That means you
Hmm.
still have that dependency for your reporting layer, your content that's out there. Just because we talk about Fabric and all these, data lakehouses and all this other stuff. That is awesome, but that doesn't mean the other aspects of the Power BI platform aren't just as relevant or important. In fact, they're probably still far more important and relevant
Yeah.
than the Fabric stuff is because of the preview features of it, right? Um, and so when it comes to consuming these things, I just want people to, be aware of that as you go through and look at this content. This is something that's important. A few things I want to kind of call out in here that I just thought was amazing, and that's uh, it says the multitasking monitoring hub support. You see, this is interesting. I didn't realize that you'd call the monitoring hub support as the like filtering here. That's a little odd, but
Hmm.
let's dive in and let's kind of talk about some of these new features that are there. Okay. Um, the big one that I really liked is this Fabric Purview capabilities. Now, have you used Purview before, Kevin?
I've looked at the Purview report that they have up in Fabric. A little bit. I
Okay.
have a client that was evaluating what was I consider the full blown Purview a while ago, but they never fully rolled it out. I put it up on my own tenant for a little while. Like a lot of people, like putting Purview in, using the Azure portal and everything. It gets a little overwhelming when you look at the cost. It was pretty expensive and everything. So I'm pretty excited about them having this Purview view inside Fabric and what it could do for us. So I haven't looked at it real deep. What have you seen with it?
Well, so I think that's one of the things I want to go through here is like get everyone up to speed with what it is. So here's the official like announcement of it, so you can see some kind of high level details. I shared that link in the chat, but I also shared like the more detailed, accessible experience. And for those of you who don't have access to it, I kind of wanted to run through that too. So, because I kind of like it, but let's talk it through as we start to walk through this stuff. So, I am 90% sure you have to be an admin in order to access this. Is that correct? Or is this available to everyone?
No, that is correct. Well, this default view that comes in, there's a workspace that just automatically shows up for you when you're an admin.
Hmm.
That is called
Yeah.
admin monitoring. And yes, you have to be inside the tenant admin group in order to
Okay.
see it.
Yep. Okay. So, and to get access to it, it's just this little grid over here that you access through your settings. And down here, there's the Microsoft Purview Hub right here. So if I click on this, it's going to take me into the Purview Hub. Um, and I could start to consume it from here. Is this the only way I can access this, Kevin? Because this feels like it's a workspace. Or is there
Yeah,
a port?
what I see on my tenant that I'm looking
Hmm.
at here, right? There's one that was put up before, but it looks a little bit different. That's called the admin monitoring workspace.
That is different than the Purview Hub.
That
So
is different, but if there's a report in there called Purview Hub.
oh, maybe that's where
So
that comes
I'm
in.
gonna look between these two in real time because you went to. Okay,
Oh
so
yeah, look
yeah,
at that.
when you say open full report, I think it's going to open the exact same full report as if
Yeah,
you get one.
yep.
Yes.
It's in the admin monitoring workspace here. So
Yeah. Which you only see when you are in a tenant admin setting.
yep. Okay, well, fair enough. Good to know that that is the path and how you can access it. But if you just go right into the Purview Hub, you can see how um, we get what's in this essence here. I think a kind of like this is like an actual Power BI dashboard embedded within this web page that they've created for like kind of like the Purview home inside of here, right? So very similar to what our home experience is, where we've got access to like documentation, guides, and data loss prevention, audit, that type of thing, as well as overview of what's going on uh, inside of our capacity. And I think there's some things in here that I think are really valuable for uh, um, uh, okay,
For managing
very valuable
your
for managing our space
yeah.
and for promoting best practices, especially around certified, promoted, and like your ad hoc or no endorsement stuff. No.
Yeah, you have that whole sensitivity page right there for what's they call it labeled and unlabeled, which I think has that whether something's certified.
Sure.
It, well, I guess that's just for the sensitivity, if it's labeled for a sensitivity part. Sorry to cut you off. Oh,
No,
endorsed
no, no, no,
report.
no.
There's a whole endorsed report too. Sorry, I'm looking at this like real time on my tenant as you are. So.
Yeah.
Oh,
Well,
that
and
page,
Ben
yeah.
Ferry has like he's got some like fighting words here. He said he's not a fan of it. Um uh uh he's not a fan of it. He needs it. It's restrictive and needs some additional capabilities added to this. And Christina agrees. I think there's some. I think this is a nice first MVP step. That's where I'm kind of going with it. It promotes it promotes a lot of behaviors that like we want to promote people to follow. But it's something that is um it needs it's a first step, right? Like hopefully we could get access to the data set that's behind this, and we could start to do additional integrations here. um
Well, so I just did that on mine, right? Where
mhm.
in the admin monitoring workspace, you can see the data set. So on the Purview Hub, I did just do create new report. It
Oh,
doesn't seem to be a whole lot there though. I got measures, item. Yeah, so you might be able to kind of make your own type of stuff and maybe, let's see, there's a user table in there. So maybe you could kind of personalize it. I'd have to see what all the connections look like and everything, kind of to Christina's point.
well, that is interesting. So I've created this where I could go in and I could put in my workspace name and interesting user ID. Well, that's not popular with everything, so that's interesting. That's less helpful. Item type, okay. Oh, maybe it's just there it is. Name, email. Okay. Oh, there's Christina Hughes. She comes through here. Type home. Interesting. Well, so I mean, yeah, you can create your own types of information here. So I would imagine I can share this out to other people. Um, clearly that's not working the way we'd intended to.
That
Maybe.
it might not work. if you even save that report into a different workspace, right?
Mm-hmm.
The other people may not have access to the backend data set.
Okay. Oh yeah,
So
my
that would have to be
workspace.
something to test.
Well, let's try share to web content. Uh,
Yeah, if
let's get
everybody
really
in the
crazy
world.
here. Right. Let's
Wait,
see
you
if
don't have that feature disabled?
well yeah, yeah. Let's see if we can make this available and accessible uh, to the world or not. I'm gonna guess because it's a data set that's not in the workspace. I can't. Oh, publish to the web public. Yeah. No. Yep. Oh wait, no. Yeah. Not eligible with publish to web. Yep. Okay, so you can't publish it to the web. But that's a good question. Can we publish this out? Can we share this with other people? We'd have to test that out and see if this actually worked. Beyond that. So, um, but I I don't know. I kind of like it. I like that we have that access to these capabilities here. I mean, if we go in, we go back up to that Purview report. What the heck? This looks different. Okay, we can see how many reports we have, data flows, data sets, data
Hmm.
flows Gen 2, right? We could look at our sensitivity. Oh yeah, I'm not using sensitivity. We probably should. An
Well,
endorsement.
we're on your dev tenant, right? So,
Yeah, that's true.
but even on your dev
Yeah.
tenant, you're testing out the endorsements, right?
Yep.
So it looks like you have some that are promoted, some that are certified, right?
Mm-hmm.
But if um, I think this is all good information here. So, yeah, I mean, are there always a couple things here and there that come out on the first couple releases? Yeah, that seems to be that the mode that we're in, and how Microsoft is releasing things to Fabric and Power BI. They'd rather get something out there and get some feedback than not get something out there at all. And I
Yeah.
could appreciate that. So, I like that there's something there, that there's a direction that we're taking, that we're able
Mm-hmm.
to get some of these things. Now, if you need more information, should you still go out to Rui's GitHub and maybe install that, get more information to where you're getting the data from the REST APIs, storing it. If you're buying into Fabric, right, store that right into your data lake. Because I know that solution, I end up putting that to a ADLS Gen 2 storage account that you could bring it right in. But, you know, for somebody, I've been at really small shops where they're like, look, I don't need all that information. Okay, but you need some information, and they could
Right.
just use this because it's there, right? It's super simple for them. Uh, I
Well,
think it's a great step.
and that's a great point. If you don't want to or don't have the ability to spin up all the stuff that Rui has already published or create your own content, this gets you at least a step forward. Like be able to hone in on where are all my reports and where are my certified reports. That's
Yeah.
that type of stuff is useful, right? Um, Now, I could see what my balance is that I have in my organization of where I'm using. Now, I'd imagine most companies have the certified is this tiny little sliver of
Hmm.
content out there, and there's a tiny little sliver of promoted items that are out there as well.
Right.
Um, uh, but where with most everything being in the none, and I mean that is what's the case here, right? Like I've got 261 items in my dev tenant with no labeling, and I've got certified and promoted here.
Yeah.
Now, I wonder how often this gets refreshed. Like, could I go in and make a change to something? And like, let's see here. Do I have AdventureWorks Lakehouse workspace? I've got nothing certified. So if I go over to my workspaces, Lakehouse, and I want to use the new filter. And are you using the new filter? experience here,
I've
Kevin?
used it a couple times. Yeah, it's nice,
Oh
especially
my.
when you get into workspaces that, like I have a sandbox at one client because I'm trying to test out how I want to do everything for them.
Mm-hmm.
So everything's kind of dumped in the one workspace right now as I'm showing them a couple things.
Sure.
And so yeah, it gets very, very busy. So yeah, this is nice.
Well, I'm gonna say I really like this because it makes it much easier for us to access and use and
Mm-hmm.
filter through a whole bunch of stuff out there. One of my concerns, though, is if we think about capacity management, especially in Fabric, as that's going to become an increasingly relevant thing. Um, I can, I can only manage a capacity at a workspace level. Like I can't say, okay, this direct lake you run off of these resources, these data flows you run off of these resources, and these reports you run off of a different resource. If you put
Oh,
too
within the
much
workspace?
within the workspace, yeah. Um, so if you put too many things in here, like we saw, I mean, I've seen workspaces with hundreds of reports in there where it's
Mm-hmm.
got a data set and a report, and like
Yeah.
going through and finding all of that is a huge mess. Um, and then like performance is a challenge because now you don't have any ability to have additional breakouts and capacity. So if you need more than, let's say, a P1, if that's insufficient for all of the data flows and all of the data sets and all of the reports, and now all of the notebooks and all of the lake houses and all of the data warehouses, now you're kind of in big trouble, right? Because you can't
Yeah.
separate out lower, right?
Yeah, you'd have to break it into multiple workspaces, and
Yep.
I hear your point to where, well, that is an interesting one, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you have one workspace with a lot of things in there, are you forced that you want to have only that one workspace on a capacity, and then have to continuously grow that capacity?
Yeah.
I,
Because
I,
that
I wonder how big of a use case, because I could see that for a lot of the bigger customers and everything, but I could also wonder about the trade-off on the management at the object level of saying assign this object to this capacity and this object to a different capacity within the workspace. Um,
Oh, I'm not saying
but
that's easy or ideal. I'm just calling that out uh as an opportunity,
yeah,
right, to potentially say, like, like, while this is cool, while it's great that I'm able to filter in and make all these selections, and like, I mean, as you can kind of see, like as I do those selections, now that it becomes easy to manage what's in this workspace, right? So
yeah,
I'm not inclined to make a change to this. But when I don't have the filters on, then it's easy for it to become hard to work with, right? So
yeah,
um just just something that I kind of liked here. But
yeah. So that's interesting. So on that data set for the Purview hub, I
mhm.
mean, mine's showing that it's updating in real time.
Okay. All right. And oh yeah, that's what I was gonna do. So like if I went in and I said on the settings for this lake house, and I want to set my endorsement to certify this, I could hit apply, right? So I went into the settings, and just like I would on a data set, right? But this is the lake house, right? This is my direct lake house, right? If I hit apply on this, and I go back to my AdventureWorks Lakehouse workspace, I could see that. Oh no, that was my data set. Dang it! Wait, I just want my lake houses. Right? So my lake house. Oh, a big call out here. These data flow staging lake houses do not use these. Okay?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah, these are going to be hidden. They're used in the back end process. Um uh so like be aware that you shouldn't be using these right now. Those will go away at some point in time, right? But I should be able to go into. Wait a minute. Where's my settings? Endorsement. Oh, interesting. Okay. So I could define that over on the side here, where a data set, you define it just like you always have, where you have the endorsements and settings. Now the lake house, and it looks like the data engineering items are captured over here. I wonder if this is going to be something that we see in the future. What can I do here? Oh, I describe it. Oh, I can access my SQL endpoint here too. That's interesting. Cool. Well, one of the things I'm using this all over the place. The SQL endpoint and lake houses to do down and dirty, rapid like investigations to dumps of data. I'm finding that super helpful, right? Like, I get a whole bunch of data sets of content. I'm trying to understand what's in there. And then I can go in and I can load that all into a lake house. I can then start to explore it using the notebooks or the queries that are inside of Fabric. But if I need to use, for whatever reason, I need to use XYZ tool to share that information with someone, this SQL endpoint connection string makes that super easy.
Oh, I use it all the time too. So yeah, I'll bring in some data, start setting it all up and everything, and then I'll use I keep defaulting back to SQL Management Studio. It's just I've used it for so many years. I'm comfortable writing SQL. So I try to use the stuff up on the web a little bit here and there, but I always find myself going back to that. So yeah, and I've tried to use the Azure Data Studio sometimes, right? And I like that when I'm gonna try to design out some multi-step, almost like a stored procedure or whatever, and I'll open up a notebook in Azure Data Studio, run my different parts, kind of keep cleaning up my different things, same notebook experience that you see with notebooks up on Fabric itself. So yeah, those SQL endpoints are great.
Yep. And let's finish the experiment. I just certified it. So if I go back to my Purview hub, I should be able to find out an AdventureWorks Lakehouse item that is certified. Now, this is not. I wonder if I have to go to the Purview hub here.
I don't think there's a refresh on the dataset stuff, but mine just keeps showing actual time, like it's real time, like it's updating all the time.
Okay, so that would imply that I could go in here and see that at my AdventureWorks Lakehouse I have a certified something here.
Oh, you know what? I'm reading it differently. Sorry.
Okay.
Mine is reading it refreshed today on 9/8, and then the next refresh is tomorrow 9/9 at 7:26. I was just reading the time.
Okay. All right.
So it looks like it's maybe refreshing once a day.
All right.
Which is a little bit too bad.
Yeah. But I mean, that it's not the end of the world. Where did you see that?
If you go to the workspace itself, the admin monitoring workspace.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, right there.
You should see the 2 times, and they should be exactly a day apart.
I wonder how I got this time. 6:55 is a very interesting time, especially because we can only schedule data sets every 15 minutes. Microsoft and your sneaky ways of.
Yeah, because mine is 7:26 this morning, which is probably when I went to it.
Okay.
Just before our live stream started, and I know it was turned off because I haven't been in here for a while, and so I think it decided, I'll turn back on the automatic refresh, and it just did it at whatever time I connected to it. So.
Yeah, this one's at 2:35 in the afternoon, which is a super interesting time to do a refresh. I don't see any controls on that would give me any toggles here. That would be kind of nice. But hey, it is what it is. It's free. I don't have to do anything. That is super nice and helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So hey, beggars can't be choosers. So I'm gonna go ahead and there's actually
but
go ahead.
But yeah, just let me finish that thought. Like,
Mhm.
so beggars can't be choosers, yeah, and it's free, but I still think this is so great. Think about it, like you and me, do a lot of consulting, right? You have new clients that come up, and you say, hey, for me to understand what you want me to do, or I'm going to take over what you've already done, you kind of have to know a lot of that stuff. And before there was a couple Power BI reports, we could have sent to them, told them, hey, make sure you're an admin, that you could access these REST APIs or whatever. But now it's just so much easier. You could go to a potential new client and say, hey, have somebody that's an admin go into this report, send me these screenshots so I could do my 5-minute assessment to say where I want to go to next for you, right? Especially if you're very early on in an engagement with them or just learning about
Mhm.
their environment and everything. I think there's enough stuff there to give us a lot of information when we're first assessing a client and what we could potentially do for them. So
Yeah.
have you thought about it in that term?
So yes, yes, I have, and for that use case, if you're an admin or you can become an admin, that is great. I think the challenge exists for everyone who isn't an admin, which is ninety
The
nine point
majority, yeah.
99% of the people that are out there, and I think this is a big issue for companies that have like a stated uh, PIM process for getting access to admin credentials.
Mm-hmm.
And for those of you who aren't familiar with like a PIM process, it's privileged identity management. So it's not your ID or it's special privileges that your ID
Mm-hmm.
get only when you've gone through like a purposeful like okay, I have picked up the torch of admin and I am now the activities I do for the next 15 minutes or an hour or 2 hours or whatever limits they put on it are now going to be that of an admin. And I know several companies where the act of picking up that torch is like a 20-minute process. So it's something that is done very reluctantly, and it's
Mm.
not something that people jump into and they're not like, yeah, let me just hop over to my admin and check this out. um so I think that is a huge challenge that we get, especially with a workspace and a data set that is only to that very small audience. And I think that also
Yeah.
is going to translate into delays in getting feedback and adoption, because people are going to say like, we've only had 30 people access it yesterday or whatever that number is, right? And I think that will distort Microsoft's investment potentially, and I hope not though.
That's interesting. Yeah, and
Any other thoughts on that?
um, yeah, that is interesting. That is a very intense PIM process. I've seen it to where some some companies will implement that by giving a person two separate IDs, right? So they just have to
Hmm.
log into a different ID, which makes it a little bit easier. But the ones that have to do it that way, that is an interesting viewpoint because yeah, it's where that you have to request it. It has to get granted. Like you said, it's granted for only a couple hours or whatever. That could derail it. So
Yep. Yep.
time will tell. Time will tell. All right, I cut you off on getting to Jack's question.
No problem. Let's head over to this. Jack's asking is, my understanding is that Fabric previews an F64 capacity. It is.
Hmm.
Have you been able to reduce and run at lower capacities and test performance? And that has been followed on by Mark to tack on to to Jack's question. And at what level, if any, control different capacity levels or at workspaces? And let's tackle both of those, and in fact, let's show you. Oh, Barbie, I got thanks for hopping on.
Yeah, we'll see you soon.
All right, so my AdventureWorks Lake House, you can see that this is in a premium capacity, so I got my diamond there. The question is, uh, what kind of capacity is it in? So I'm going to go into workspace settings here. and I'm going to go over to my premium connector. So we can see that it's all in this capacity right here. You can kind of see that it's I selected the premium capacity, and I am in a trial now.
Mm-hmm.
The nice thing is you can easily go over and you can choose to set it to a fabric capacity or a premium capacity. I don't know what happens if you do a premium per user because that is not the same, right?
If you do premium per user and you have fabric related objects, those
Mhm.
objects will no longer execute. If you go to click on them or anything like
Okay.
that, they don't get deleted. I don't think. I mean, I doubt because Microsoft doesn't delete anything, right? But when you click on them, they'll tell you you need to purchase a fabric capacity or something like that. So, but yeah, definitely if you already have fabric related objects, don't change it to premium per user. Premium per user does not support fabric objects.
Well, this is interesting. So I have my fabric capacities, and maybe this is something that's jacked up here. Is I actually have two available: Eagle and Fabric Admin Group North Carolina. Now I might have accidentally created this
Or
as
North
part of a
Central.
demo that I did. Actually, now that I
Yeah.
think about it, um, but if I go over to my premium capacity, oh wait, no, sorry, premium capacity. I select trial. I now have my Eureka capacity. Oops, Eureka capacity. But that's kind of interesting because if I go over to Portal, and I look at my capacities, Eagle is a
You,
fabric capacity.
mm-hmm.
Right, so
You
I've got
should have a
Eagle.
second one.
That's a fabric capacity. And I like to party is a fabric capacity. Where's my Eureka? I don't see it
Well,
here.
if Eureka is a premium one, then that would
Oh,
wouldn't
then it would
that
be.
would be in the Microsoft 365
You're right.
settings.
Okay, so I've got these two. I've got Eagle, and I like to party. In fact, let's
But
look
I
at
like the
all.
party didn't show up on yours.
Yeah, yeah. And so that's what I'm getting at here. Like, so let's see. Type.
Do you have I like the party paused?
That might be it. So
I
if I
wonder if it
look,
didn't show up when it's paused.
so I've got. God dang it.
I don't have my full setup, so that's why,
Okay,
I'm
so
not driving, but
I've got Eagle, Fabric Admin Group, and I like to party. And so when we were in here and we had fabric capacity selected, we
mhm.
saw Eagle and Fabric Admin Group. Eagle and Fabric Admin Group. Okay. Is Eagle running? Eagle is running. Fabric Admin Group is running. And I like to party appears to be running. Oh, wait.
Hmm.
Yeah, so I don't know why. Oh, wait. No, I didn't switch. I never switched. It didn't switch. So I like to party is paused.
Yeah, and that would
Fabric
explain it.
Admin Group is not paused. Okay. And Eagle is not paused. So,
Yeah,
and
they
this
have to be
gets
running to show up.
right, right. So I'm going to pause this because I don't want to have multiple fabric capacities running right now.
Depends on how much. I mean, you got a P1, Chris. I mean, come on.
Well, so uh, these are just F2s, right? So that's all that it is. Same thing with the Eagle. That's an F2,
Mm-hmm.
right? Um, so both of these are set up and good. So we can, yes, we can go in and we can manage these. So, and well, to that extent, Mark is asking, can you change sizes? Yes, you can go and you can choose like, hey, uh, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change it to an F64 and start billing at this higher price, right?
Right. And it's going to bill for the time that you have it active. But I'm going to interpret Mark's question just a little bit different.
Okay.
So for the trial capacity that is set up, you don't have any ability to manage that one. You cannot change the size of the trial capacity.
Yep.
But as you're showing, you can go set up your own billable capacities, and you can pause them and unpause them to help manage your cost, right?
Yep.
And then you could do your to see if you're going to have any. I doubt you'll have performance problems, Jack. What I have started seeing is I have an F2 capacity that I was running and doing a lot of development work in. And I had a workload running at the same time, and all of a sudden I started getting messages that I was out of capacity units, which I thought was a little bit odd. But what I kind of discovered is if I was modifying multiple notebooks, I would, every time you open up a new notebook, it could start a new session. But now they have the feature where you could say, hey, tell this notebook to use the same session as the last notebook. So I think that was how I ended up getting to this point of saying you don't have any capacity units left, because I put up multiple notebook sessions at the same time. So yeah, you can do all that. I don't think you'll see a difference in the actual performance. I think things will perform just as fast, but you can start seeing if you ever run into this message that tells you don't have enough capacity units.
Well, we're gonna try it because so this is a Dataflow Gen 2, so it's going to be running on a Fabric capacity, running in modern workspaces. I've been running it. If I look at my refresh history, well, let me change my layout here so we get a little more zoomed in, and we can see this here. So this, generally speaking, this is taking about a minute to run or so every time that it runs. Okay. So this was running on my trial capacity to get this up and running, and takes about a minute. So a minute is that is a long enough time that it's not a second. It's not like, it runs for 16 seconds and it ran for 20 seconds. Like, it's 25% faster. To me, that's a bad timing test because it's not a sufficient enough run time to really get some sort of understanding of what the utilization is. Okay. Now, I've switched my capacity from this was a trial, and I'm now on my Eagle, my F2 capacity, right? So I can go down here, and we're testing this on the fly. I'm gonna click on refresh now, and we will see how long it takes to do the ad hoc refresh of this data.
Was Eagle the one that you just moved up from F2 to F64?
No, I did not change Eagle size.
You didn't change it. Okay.
Eagle is still Eagle is still an F2. I'm not changing that at all. So this is an F2 capacity, right? Running a process that, generally speaking, takes a month to run, or
a month.
a month, yeah.
Well, it's going to be a long live stream today, so
yeah.
Why don't you stay and wait for the results?
Right. And if I was smart, I would have showed you what this looked like ahead of time. But this is just an Excel workbook that is in OneDrive that has a number, like the AdventureWorks tables captured inside of different tabs and defined tables inside there. So it's the GenFlu to connecting to all of those tables and then loading that. Or actually, it might even just be one table inside there. I forget what it is, but it loads that into OneLake, right? So if we hit refresh, so I think we've been at that minute. Yes, because Donald, you are spot on. Excel is a DBA or a database.
It is the most popular database.
Yes. And if we go and we see what is our refresh history at. Okay, so it started like 2 minutes ago. It's still in progress. So, interesting. What did I copy there? notepad because I don't know what I have. Oh, absolutely nothing. All right, so great functionality there. No, I don't need that. All right, so that's still running. We'll see how long that takes to run. I think there's always like a startup time there, but we'll see how long that takes to run. Okay. It's not looking great performance wise when we go from a 64 to a 2. But that kind of makes a little sense that it's now, uh, you know, 1/32 of the size, right? So, but
Okay, so you did have that on your 64. This data flow was on the 64 before,
correct.
and you moved it to the one that's on the 2.
Right.
Okay.
Oh, wait, is it done? Oh yeah, it's done. Okay, so it finished. Let's see what's the settings. Refresh history. Okay, the on demand still took. Look at this. Ah,
About the same amount of time, right?
yeah. It took it took realistically the same amount of time to do that. Any
Yeah.
sort of like discrepancies or issues. I'm sure there's something with live streaming 4K video and that type of crap will slow that down too. So, um, yeah, uh, that's kind of exciting. That worked.
Yeah.
So now,
So can we get to Mark's kind of follow-up question, the Jack's question that was kind of getting us here, right? Because
mhm,
Jack asked about, testing the lower size and if it would be a performance, but yeah, he had a couple that he was putting in here about, that was fine. You could have stayed on
oh,
that one.
okay,
Can you basically his just as, hey, can you control who takes up what capacity unit, you know, say by workspace or the user or anything like that? And my answer is no. I haven't seen anything like that. You're producing a capacity. Your capacity administrators can assign workspaces to that capacity, and then
hmm
whatever's running on there is collectively using the capacity units for that capacity. So if you have to throttle different users or whatever, the only way you're going to be able to do it right now is set up multiple capacities.
correct, and that's where
Which,
I think to build on that, that's where capacity management and having more capacities and scaling capacities and turning them off and on as people are doing different
mm-hmm,
things are going to become more important and more part of the aspect of working and operating inside of Fabric. Because,
yeah,
um, well, if you need that finer grain of control, lots
yes,
of companies have said, and they like this in the Power BI space. One of the reasons Power BI was so successful was companies could get that committed compute with the premium capacity and say, okay, we're going to spend $5,000 a month on cloud data processing, and that's
mm-hmm,
what we're going to spend. That's our budget. It's $5,000. It's never $6,000. It's never $10,000. It's never accidentally 100,000 or $1,000,000 in
right,
cloud compute. It's always $5,000. So regardless of what someone goes in and configures, you're set up with that spend. Um, Fabric, I think, gives us much more of the flexibility to say, okay, you know what? I want more control over that. I want to be able to say, um, yeah, I'm going to control these groups in this way. So that, okay, your team, you can have an F-32, but make sure that you pause it because your spend on any given month is X. So write scripts that pause it at 5 p.m. every night, restart it at 7 a.m. or something along those lines,
mm-hmm,
and that's completely and totally possible.
yeah.
Uh,
And so Jack put in here, right? So you could have multiple capacities per tenant. That's exactly what Chris was showing off
mhm.
of his Azure portal, where he has multiple, and he could, do, pause them, start them, assign them to each workspace could go to one and only one tenant, or I'm sorry, one and only one capacity, but a capacity could have multiple workspaces, and you could have multiple capacities. So one of the techniques that I used in exactly what Chris was laying out is we would have a customer that would have a P1, and that would be primarily our we did it at our test and production workloads were thrown onto the P1. But our developers, we started using PPU so that they could sit there and do testing and they could put anything they wanted at it without impacting production.
Yep.
Similar concept in the fabric side is going to be having a F64 or still using your P1, but setting up an F2 that you give to developers or an F4 or whatever size that they need. And like Chris was just talking about, you could set up Azure rub books basically to stop and start your capacities in order to save cost on it.
Yeah.
So not only can you have it in a bigger type of shop, you probably should have multiple capacities.
Yep. And you can now do things like so I'm in my I like to party fabric capacity, right? So I'm in this resource. Inside of access control, I can look at the different roles that are natively part of the subscription, right? So I could see that on roles, go away. There's all these different roles that have been assigned and created, right? So we've got owner. Owner grants full access to manage all resources, including the ability to assign roles in Azure RBAC. Contributor grants access to God bless it. uh, Contributor grants full access to manage all resources, but does not allow Azure to assign or Azure RBAC controls, i.e., cannot add users in to do things. So, as an admin, I am very partial to using the contributor here for teams who want to be able to manage like capacities like this. So if I'm going to spin up a capacity and I want them to be able to turn it on and off, I can control that by saying, okay, I've created this Azure AD group. This Azure AD group has contributor privileges to this capacity, and these are the team members that are part of that capacity. That allows you to really have direct access into who can manage the spin up or spin down of capacities and make it so that teams can manage the work that they're doing and the resources that they're consuming, right?
That's
Kevin,
good
have
advice.
yeah.
No, that's really good advice because that becomes a bigger challenge, right? Is
Mm-hmm.
how if you only have it on a schedule, right? And somebody goes, hey, I want to work at 3 in the morning because I happen to wake up and I want to solve this problem, which is a real thing
Mm-hmm.
for some of us. That you want them to be able to go ahead and spin it up. Yeah, it's one little extra step. These things spin up amazingly fast. So, if they have the capability to do it, that they don't have to contact somebody else or wait on that schedule, that's a great technique to allow that to happen and allow the teams to be self-managing and everything. Now, what you still may want to do is have something that's on a schedule to go ahead and terminate it because most people are going to forget to shut it off at some point.
Yep.
And you run a risk of doing that. I haven't looked at a way to say, can I tell if anything ran on this capacity in the last hour? Can I shut it down or anything like that? I
Yeah.
haven't seen that yet. Can you do that?
Yeah.
Have you seen it?
You could get like access controls. Like, are people accessing it? Are they using it?
Mm-hmm.
The easiest ones that I've used are just by default. You have a job that runs in like DevOps that at 5:30 at night, you just pause all the capacities and you can go through and like put in a list of GUIDs of capacities. Or I think you can actually even filter to type. All of this type of capacity you pause at 5:30, and then you make
Mm-hmm.
sure that you have team members that have this contributor role assigned to them so that they can go, like, you have the managers or the assistant managers or the assistant to the regional manager They can come in and turn it back on for someone who
Yeah.
happens to be working late, right? That could be helpful for them. I also do really like monitoring contributor, which allows people to not just see all of the um, monitoring items that are out there, but can actually create custom monitoring dashboards inside of Azure, so they can go in and see that. Um, but then also, well, and that's actually the publisher, so they can actually, enhance that.
Hmm.
Uh, but also this monitoring reader, right? So you have your owners that can turn it back on, but you have just all of your team members have access to that ability to read if it's on or not, right? So this is just
Oh,
this is just
okay.
real good, really nice and useful, especially because like your readers, I think because kind of goes to like answer I think Mark's question around like what about and I call they're called bad actors or some people call them bad
Hmm.
actors. It's not necessarily that they're intentionally bad. They just maybe they like in fact, I know I've written bad queries or things that don't perform well, right? Like you write it and then it starts to run and you're like, "Oh, am I, what's causing my stuff not to run?" And then you go in and you look at your monitoring and you're like, "Oh,
Oh,
I'm
it's
causing."
me.
Yeah.
I always
What's
hate
that
that
meme?
feeling.
Like that guy shooting the dead body and like, "What? Why would the guns do that?" Uh so this is something that is really useful and helpful. And if you've not if you've not like gone in and looked at these roles that are in Azure, which a lot of people haven't,
Hmm.
now's the time to start to do that stuff. And honestly, like encourage your admins and your Azure admins to know about this and make sure that they're enabling this, because a lot of people are coming from the old school on-prem world where under no circumstances would you give the ability for just people to have admin access to your resources. Well, this is starting to change because we have all of these new ways of controlling what people can do inside those resources and really
Hmm.
helping your organization manage that content. Okay.
Yeah, you definitely have to learn it some more. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
Yep.
So I see we're getting close to the end of time.
Good
Uh,
call.
and Fernando did put one question in here about going to Vegas next month. I think he's talking about the Power Platform Conference. It's in
Yes,
Vegas.
yes, that is the Platform conference that is coming up in October. I am not going to be able to make that, so I'm terribly
I,
sorry. Kevin and I will be at the Minnesota SQL Saturday conference on September 30th. So if you
yes.
want to come see us, we will be there. In fact, we'll be there the night before and the night of. So maybe
Hmm.
people are in town, like hit us up on social media, we'll figure something out.
Yeah, I read something on LinkedIn yesterday that there's
Mhm.
a social hour
Oh,
after the
great.
session. Um, so yeah, there's definitely going to be times to mingle and everything. So, uh, come out to St. Paul. Looking forward to seeing everybody there.
Yeah.
What are we showing? Oh, I see what you're showing
Well,
here.
and if you're at all interested, we do have shirts. You can order them. Uh, I would recommend get your shirt now if you want to be sporting your own Fabric Friday shirts when we're at conferences. It takes 2 to 3 weeks for delivery. These are print on order. Like Mark Walters can attest, it could take longer than you'd expect. Unfortunately, um, and if you watched the Read conversation yesterday, we have a brand new fabric formula shirt that is just available. Kevin, you can look for yours. Will be coming out
Oh,
relatively soon. But
nice.
we show the fabric formula for success. So thank you guys very much. Go ahead, order that if you're interested.
Cool.
Support the channel. All right. Uh, that's all I got. Kevin, anything before we go?
I don't have anything else. I see Fernando again called out that Christina will be in Minnesota as well. She's
Ah,
actually one of them helping putting that conference on. So it'll be good to see her there. I know she's busy with everything else that she's talked about, but it'll be great. So thanks everybody for joining.
Awesome.
Chris, you want to take us out?
Yeah, we will see you guys later. Peace.
Peace.
Baker Tilly Digital combines strategic industry insight and advanced technical expertise to uncover and solve your digital transformation challenges. If you're interested in learning more, check out our website at bakertilly.com/digital.